I still believe Five Nights at Freddy's 4 is the most masterfully crafted game in the FNAF franchise, and possibly of the last decade, and a large reason why is because of how it acted as a last chapter to the original FNAF story, adding new content while also complementing the previous games. A while ago I made a video claiming to solve every mystery in FNAF 4, but it didn't. There were 3 left, so I made another video solving one, which left perhaps the 2 most mysterious lingering questions till last. It may have actually been good that I held off answering these last 2 mysteries for a few months in particular, because I now have a solution which is coherent, conclusive, and above all, logical. The 2 loose threads which remain are the infamous reversed phone calls that you can hear during the nights, and what the strange laughter is that you hear in the background of the cutscenes between the nights. Let me cut off one of these mysteries right away, the laughing we hear in the background of the cutscenes, which I'll play for you now. This laughter is from Michael Afton and the bullies while they're tormenting the young crying child. Even though the laughter happens outside of cutscenes where the bullies are present, it always happens within Fredbear's family diner. This also disproves that the laughter is from the possessed Fredbear plush, which was a possible theory around the time of FNAF 4's release. This leaves perhaps the biggest mystery in Five Nights at Freddy's 4, the reversed phone guy calls we hear during the main gameplay. For those of you who don't know, these small audio segments, which are most likely to be heard on night 1 and 5 of the game, appear seemingly at random. I'm going to play an example now, and I should disclose fully that this has not been edited. The gameplay and the audio have not been edited at all, and I can confirm this simply by saying that the audio files for the game are freely available online. Here it is. Before I get into my answer for what this means, I'd like to quickly highlight how nobody drew attention to this, despite it being very important to the game. Even the biggest names like Game Theory is the obvious one, just never spoke about this. To get to what I mean, we have to draw on evidence I presented in my previous theory. Simply put, it goes by the fairly popular belief that the cutscenes between nights take place in 1983 from the perspective of the crying child, whereas the nightmares are being had by Michael Afton in the present day, which I believe to be 2023, but I'll get into why later on. I believe that these phone calls were placed in by Scott purposefully, to inform us that we play as Michael Afton in this game. In 1983, Michael and his friends caused the death of the crying child. Riddled by guilt and trauma, a decade later in 1993, Michael gets a job as a security guard in FNAF 1. Michael is no stranger to having hallucinations and nightmares, as we see in FNAF 1 through the "It's me" messages, and more importantly, Golden Freddy, the body who the crying child now possesses. What's significant to draw from Michael's time in FNAF 1 is that he would have heard the FNAF 1 phone calls, obviously. This places FNAF 4's night sequences sometimes after FNAF 1, and again, I believe it to be 2023. Here's why, and then we'll get into the reversed phone calls. After Scott admitted that nobody understood the story of FNAF 4 and abandoned the FNAF 4 box, he decided to push us towards understanding that we play as Michael Afton in FNAF 4 another way, the survival logbook. I mentioned this in my previous theory too, but it's important to re-emerge here. A page in the survival logbook, originally given to Michael Afton by the way, asks the reader to draw any nightmares they've had recently. Michael draws an accurate nightmare Fredbear. On the pages between chapters in the survival logbook, we can see Foxy in the Fazbear's Fright building from FNAF 3, which takes place in 2023. If this is true, then Michael would have had the FNAF 4 nightmares and been given the survival logbook when he started his job at Fazbear's Fright in 2023, before facing off with his father in FNAF 3, and after that all that was left was working with Henry to free the remaining spirits in Pizzeria Simulator, also set in 2023. And this is confirmed. So Michael is being tormented in his nightmares by the animatronics, who could even be as a result of his time in FNAF 1 now that I think of it. Design wise that would go with the phone calls. Apparently everybody is guaranteed to get one of these reversed phone calls at least once during a playthrough of FNAF 4, but I'm not sure if this is accurate or not. Essentially, the phone calls are simply aspects of his nightmares as Michael remembers his previous time at Freddy Fazbear's. I believe they're reversed because 1, it would be too on the nose to have them play as normal, and 2, it's a dream, nothing works as it's meant to. This is a nightmare where we hallucinate IV drips and medicine bottles, which are here 1 minute and gone the next. Breathing, which we hear from animatronics in the later nights of FNAF 1, is back in 4, so we already know Michael has these memories in mind and they're far from suppressed. The phone calls are just another aspect of the torment that he's going through. Another thing that's important to note is that these phone calls are most likely to be heard in either the first night or the fifth night, the latter of which in FNAF 4 contains only Nightmare Fredbear. Bonus theory here is that Nightmare Fredbear is actually representing the Psychic Fredbear plush in FNAF 4, which is continuing to avenge the crying child by tormenting his killer, Michael Afton, to this day. The reverse calls are also heard on night 1 because, well, it's the FNAF 1 night 1 phone call, it just kinda makes sense. I'd like to conclude here by saying that FNAF 4 is just a beautiful game. Although the timeline is very frustrating, a part of me is glad that we don't outright have the correct answers, because opportunities like that mean that videos like this can exist in the first place. I believe that if a story is too easy to understand, then it's a bad story, and that's what makes this franchise, and more specifically this game, very, very special. And with that, I believe I've answered every single mystery in Five Nights at Freddy's 4 between these 3 videos, so please go back and watch the other ones if you haven't. I'm the only one that watches my videos this far anyway, so I'm probably just speaking to myself. And that's all I have to say. I'm not sure I'll be returning to FNAF 4 now that I've said everything that I have to. If I do, then it will just be to correct something that I've said, even though I'm satisfied with all of my theories as they're currently presented.